The Young and the Restless Spoilers breaking news: a web of deception. Summer's desperate gambit for Kyle. In the world of high-stakes relationships and tangled emotions, love often teeters on the edge of obsession. For Summer Newman, her yearning for Kyle Abbott had crossed that line long ago. The two shared a storied past, filled with fleeting moments of intimacy and the unshakable shadow of what could have been. Yet, fate had always seemed to conspire against them. Their most recent encounter, a reckless night fueled by nostalgia and unresolved feelings, had left an indelible mark on Summer's heart. Kyle, however, had moved on. His devotion to Claire, a woman whose quiet strength and elegance captivated him, had solidified into a love so deep it eclipsed his tumultuous history with Summer. Despite this, Summer refused to accept that Kyle would never be hers again. Her determination to win him back turned darker with each passing day. A desperate plan is born. Summer watched Kyle and Claire from the shadows, seething with envy. They radiated happiness, a bond forged on trust and mutual respect. Claire, poised and self-assured, had an innate sense of grace that Summer couldn't help but resent. More than anything, Summer envied Claire's ability to bring out the best in Kyle, a man she once thought she knew better than anyone. But Summer wasn't one to wallow in defeat. She believed the roadblock standing between her and Kyle was not his love for Claire but Claire herself. All she needed was a strategy to push Claire out of the picture, and the path to Kyle's heart would be clear once more. Then it struck her. The idea was audacious, risky, and morally reprehensible, exactly the kind of plan Summer thrived on. She would feign pregnancy, claiming the child as Kyle's. She knew Kyle's sense of duty would compel him to act. Claire, with her unyielding principles and oversized conscience, would likely bow out, believing the child deserved a united family. Summer was banking on it. The execution, the first step of Summer's scheme, was laying the groundwork. She casually reached out to Kyle, using their past connection to initiate a conversation. Her tone was deliberately light, peppered with just enough vulnerability to evoke his sympathy. Kyle, ever the gentleman, responded cordially, unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. When the moment felt right, Summer dropped the bombshell. Kyle, she began hesitantly during a carefully staged encounter at a local cafe. Her trembling hands and watery eyes played their part flawlessly. I wasn't sure how to tell you this, but I'm pregnant. And it's yours. The words hung in the air like a detonated grenade. Kyle's face was a mixture of disbelief and dread. He stammered, searching for clarity. Summer, when? Are you sure? Summer lowered her gaze, feigning shame. That night, it was the last time we were together. I didn't think it would happen, but it did. I've seen the doctor, Kyle. There's no mistake. Kyle's world spun. The love he shared with Claire was the cornerstone of his life, but the idea of abandoning a child, if Summer's claim was true, was unthinkable. Torn between his responsibility and his feelings, Kyle was thrust into an emotional purgatory. Claire's sacrifice. Unsurprisingly, the news reached Claire quickly. Kyle, committed to honesty, told her everything. His confession was riddled with guilt and confusion, his heart breaking at the thought of losing her. Claire's initial reaction was heartbreak, but her composure soon overtook her anguish. If it's true, she said softly, her voice trembling with emotion, then this child needs a father. You need to do what's right, Kyle. But Claire, Kyle protested, his voice heavy with desperation, I love you. I don't want to lose you. Claire shook her head gently, tears spilling down her cheeks. And I love you, Kyle. But this isn't just about us. That baby deserves a united family. I can't stand in the way of that. With those words, Claire made the ultimate sacrifice, walking away from the man she loved for the sake of a child she wasn't even sure existed. Her decision, selfless and heartbreaking, reflected the essence of her character, a stark contrast to Summer's calculated manipulation. The fallout. Summer's plan seemed to work flawlessly, at first. With Claire out of the picture, Kyle turned his attention to Summer, albeit reluctantly. He insisted on accompanying her to a doctor's appointment, wanting to confirm the pregnancy for himself. Summer, caught off guard, scrambled to maintain her ruse. As Kyle became more involved, his doubts grew. He noticed inconsistencies in Summer's story, small details that didn't add up. His unease deepened when Claire, despite her heartbreak, reached out to encourage him to trust his instincts. Claire's quiet wisdom planted a seed of suspicion in Kyle's mind. When Kyle finally confronted Summer, demanding proof beyond her word, her carefully constructed facade began to crumble. Cornered, Summer broke down, admitting the truth in a fit of desperation. She pleaded for forgiveness, arguing that she acted out of love. But Kyle's disappointment was palpable. "You think this is love, Summer?" he asked, his voice heavy with anger and sadness. "This isn't love. This is manipulation. And it's over." Redemption and renewal. The revelation brought Kyle and Claire back together. Despite the pain they endured, their love proved resilient. Claire's capacity to forgive, coupled with Kyle's unwavering resolve to rebuild their trust, solidified their bond. As for Summer, her actions left her isolated and riddled with regret. She was forced to confront the consequences of her choices, a harsh lesson that left her questioning not just her love for Kyle but her very sense of self. In the end, the tangled web Summer wove unraveled, leaving her alone to face the truth. For Kyle and Claire, the ordeal became a testament to their love, a love that endured deception, heartbreak, and the trials of human frailty. The cost of deception. Summer's gamble with Kyle's trust. Summer Newman always believed she was destined to be with Kyle Abbott. Despite their volatile past, she held on to the conviction that their bond was unbreakable. Yet, her insecurities and impatience drove her to choose a path fraught with lies, a decision that would test not only Kyle's sense of responsibility but also the fragile threads of trust that still connected them. Kyle's reluctant decision. Kyle Abbott valued honesty above all else. The very idea of deception repelled him, yet Summer's announcement of her supposed pregnancy left him cornered. Claire's selfless decision to step aside had only compounded his guilt. Now, Kyle faced a moral dilemma, his commitment to Claire versus his sense of duty toward a child he believed was his. Driven by his innate sense of responsibility, Kyle chose to stay by Summer's side, at least until the child was born. The decision tore at his heart. He couldn't bring himself to feel love for Summer anymore, but the thought of abandoning his child was unbearable. He reassured himself that he was doing the right thing, even as the echoes of Claire's heartache haunted him. Summer, on the other hand, reveled in her temporary victory. She believed Kyle's proximity would rekindle his feelings for her. She was confident that once the baby arrived, Kyle would realize they belonged together. But in her hubris, she underestimated Kyle's keen intuition and the fragility of her fabricated narrative. A fragile facade. As the weeks turned into months, Summer's lie became increasingly difficult to maintain. Kyle, ever the attentive partner, insisted on attending her doctor's appointments. To avoid detection, Summer fabricated excuses, claiming she needed privacy or that the timing wasn't convenient. Her evasiveness raised Kyle's suspicions, but he held back, giving her the benefit of the doubt for the sake of the unborn child. Claire, though devastated, couldn't completely sever her ties with Kyle. She continued to care for him from a distance, offering subtle advice when he seemed overwhelmed. Her quiet presence reminded Kyle of what he had lost, fueling his determination to see through his responsibilities despite his lingering doubts about Summer. Cracks in the story. The turning point came when Kyle overheard a private conversation between Summer and her best friend. Unbeknownst to Summer, Kyle had returned home early from work and overheard her discussing the difficulty of maintaining her deception. His heart sank as he pieced together the implications of her words. Confronting Summer was inevitable. Kyle's fury was tempered by the deep disappointment he felt. "How could you, Summer?" he demanded, his voice shaking with restrained anger. "How could you use something as sacred as a child to manipulate me? Do you even understand what you've done?" Summer broke down, pleading for forgiveness. "I did it because I love you, Kyle. I couldn't stand losing you to Claire. I thought, if we had a child, you'd come back to me." Kyle's eyes burned with anger and sadness. "Love isn't about manipulation, Summer. You didn't just lie to me, you used the idea of a child, something pure and innocent, as a tool. That's unforgivable. The fallout Summer's plan, once carefully orchestrated, crumbled under the weight of her guilt and Kyle's unwavering integrity. Her desperation had blinded her to the long-term consequences of her actions. Not only had she alienated Kyle, but she had also destroyed any remaining goodwill he might have felt toward her. Kyle, though devastated by the betrayal, refused to let bitterness consume him. He reached out to Claire, laying bare the entire ordeal. His honesty and remorse were met with cautious understanding. While Claire was still hurt by the events that had unfolded, she couldn't ignore Kyle's efforts to make things right. For Summer, the fallout was a harsh reckoning. Stripped of her illusions, she was forced to confront the depths of her insecurity and the damage her actions had caused. She realized too late that her path to Kyle's heart should have been paved with sincerity, not deceit. A path forward, though the secret was out, the consequences lingered. Kyle resolved to rebuild his life, vowing to never let deception dictate his choices again. His journey back to Claire was fraught with challenges, as trust, once broken, was difficult to repair. But their shared love, tempered by adversity, began to heal with time and effort. Summer, left alone with her regrets, embarked on her own path of self-reflection. For the first time, she understood the gravity of her choices and the importance of authenticity in relationships. Whether she could ever earn Kyle's forgiveness or rebuild her life was uncertain, but her journey had begun with a single step: accepting responsibility for her actions. How long could a lie last? In the end, the lie Summer spun unraveled not because of external forces but because the truth has a way of surfacing. Kyle's instinct, Claire's quiet wisdom, and Summer's own guilt created the perfect storm for revelation. The question of how long a lie can last is less about time and more about the cracks that inevitably form under the weight of deception. And for Kyle Abbott, it was a reminder that love built on truth could weather any storm, but love built on lies was destined to collapse.